Assalamu alaikum and a very good afternoon to everybody. My name is Sarah Momtaz and I'm delighted to welcome all of you to the 7th episode in the IWFM UAE webinar series. Today's topic is a popular one which is regularly discussed in FM but not really featured much in public conferences or webinars, which we hope today will create a platform for our experts to share their knowledge and for you, the audience, to present your questions or comments for us to tackle. So once again, a very warm welcome to today's webinar, which is entitled Relationship Management in FM. Very important topic and ultimately the pinnacle of our business. I'm thrilled to be joined by an expert team of panelists who will be talking about their experiences from a strategic FM and service provider perspective. We will discuss and address if and how within their respective organizations and personal experiences, the current global pandemic and economic situation has brought the effect of relationships in FM and how it has really impacted the FM industry and how we can truly maximize on its potential. Now, as you all know, we normally have David who starts off the sessions. Unfortunately, he's not able to join us at the moment. So once again, you're going to have to make do with me. My name, as I said, is Sarah Momtaz. I'm going to be moderating. The webinar series, as always, is produced by David Carey. Hopefully, he'll be making an appearance later on towards the end of the session. Fantastic team of panelists today. We've got Mohammed Abu Laban, Malika Beatty, and Fahad Badawi. So if we can go on to the upcoming slides, I'd just like to give a shout out to our sponsors, as it were, and thank them for their loyalty and for their support. So we have Adib FM, Quality Refrigeration Air Conditioning, BFM, Tafawuk, which is an Eltizam company. Before we get started, I'd like to run through very briefly a couple of slides on IWFM. I'm not going to spend too much time on this, guys, because you can go and visit our website at your convenience where you'll get all the information, just to give you an idea on our vision and mission. And we have a few strategic aims which will be coming up on your screen very shortly. There's 4 of them in total. And again, once you go on to the actual website, you can have a look through those in a lot more detail and really find out a lot more information. Hopefully, if you're not a member, we'll become one. So let's move forward. As I mentioned, the actual title of today's session is Relationship Management in FM. We're going to be looking at the valued service partner or contracted service provider aspect of it. And I'd like to also take this opportunity just to give you an idea of the schedule, what's going to be happening for today's session. I'll start by introducing our panelists. We're going to, as always, have 3 questions that we're going to be discussing, and we're going to have a straw poll. And that straw poll really allows you, the audience, to get engaged and interact with us. There's going to be 3 options that you can choose from to the questions that we ask on the straw poll. And then what we do is actually publish those results immediately. Just to emphasize, I'm sure the regular listeners already know, it is a completely confidential poll. We don't capture your details, so please feel free to answer them as honestly as possible. Once that's done, a couple of closing remarks from the panelists and myself, and we're going to give you an idea of some of the upcoming events that's going to be taking place in the calendar. And there's also an opportunity for you to give us a feedback survey. It's a couple of questions, shouldn't take much of your time, just to give us an idea on how we can really better the actual webinars moving forward, because ultimately, you know, we're doing it for you guys, the audience. Right, thank you very much for that. So you all pretty much know me. As I mentioned, my name's Sarah Momtaz. I'm going to be monitoring, well, I'll try and monitor it also, but I'll be moderating this session today. And I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce our esteemed panelists. Right, so here we go. They're coming up on the screen. Firstly, I'm very happy to welcome Mohammed Abu Laban, who is the CEO of DRFM. Mohammed has over 20 years experience in the GCC FM industry. He's held senior roles in Dubai, Abu Dhabi, and KSA. He has a passion for customer service quality, a Master of Science qualified from the University of Surrey in the UK, and a Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering from Beirut Arab University in Lebanon. Welcome, Mohammed. It's a pleasure to have you join us today.
Thank you, Sarah, for the introduction.
Pleasure. Thanks, Mohammed. Second panelist for today is Malika Beatty, who is the General Manager for CoreServe in Dubai. Malika holds a Lean Six Sigma Black Belt in addition to her MBA and BBA from Canada. She's been ranked very highly in the FM Power 50 in the UAE market and has a passion for applying technology in FM. Very warm welcome, Malika, and thank you so much for joining today's discussion. Hoping Malika's there. We'll come back to Malika in a second. Final panelist for today is Fahad Badawi. He is the Senior Vice President and Head of FM at the National Commercial Bank in KSA. Fahad has over 17 years of experience and worked in various fields, including ICT, FM, security systems, real estate, and construction. Apart from his professional certification, he also holds a MBA from UBT in Jeddah and a BA in MIS. Hello, Fahad, welcome, and it's wonderful to have you join us all the way from Saudi this afternoon.
Thanks for the introduction, Sarah. I'm happy to be at this webinar, inshallah.
Thanks, Fahad. Hi, Malika. Can you hear us okay, Malika?
Yes, I can. Hopefully you guys can hear me okay. Sorry, there was a technical glitch.
Yes, just about. Okay, thanks, Malika. Before we get started, like I said, just a quick reminder to the attendees, interactive session, please get involved. We'd like to hear your questions and your comments. So, if you feel like you'd like to pose any of them to any of our panelists, please feel free to do so. And of course, time permitting, we will answer as many as we can. And again, after each of the discussion points, there will be a straw poll. So please also get involved in that. And as I mentioned, completely confidential, anonymous, none of your details are captured. We will be recording this session and that will be available on the IWFM website in due course. So now that's all out the way, we're going to kick straight off into the very first discussion point. So, interesting question here. I'd like to start with Mohammed, if I may. What do you see as the key differences between a service provider and a service contractor?
Thank you, Sarah, for the question. First, I'd like to thank you and David for the invitation. And I'm happy to join Fahad and Malika also as co-panelists for this discussion. With regards to the question, many times I've been addressed as a service provider as well as a service contractor. In many RFPs, we see both words. However, I find that service provider is larger in size than the service contractor. So service contractor can be a subcontractor for the service provider. The key issue here for me is coming from the title of the whole session, is looking at it as a partnership. So you said valued service provider, and you need to have that partnership between the client and the service provider. That partnership will help build a strategy, an FM strategy that will help the client reach his goals faster.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And just to follow up from that, Mohammed, based on your business practices, what do you think are the sort of main differences in terms of the contractual terms between service providers and contractors? I mean, do they exist? And if they do, what are those?
I think there is a difference because some of the smaller contractors cannot handle some of the contractual points. For example, some of the payment terms will need to be more lenient. The KPIs and the SLAs, not everything that is in the main contract with the main service provider should go down to the service contractor. Insurance, sometimes, the smaller companies not hold all the insurance or the coverage. So you as the main service provider will have a bigger blanket agreement for the insurance. QHSE, many times they will say we don't have a QHSE department or not a large one. So we will be managing the contractor and we will be guiding them on site and doing the inspections.
Understood. Yeah. Okay. Fantastic. Thank you very much, Mohammed. Let's bring Malika into the conversation, please.
Hi. Okay. So thank you so much. Excellent question, and Mohammed has rightfully said. And I'm just going to elaborate on that, and I agree with what Mohammed said, is that to me, the difference between a service provider and a service contractor is pretty much the same, where a service provider essentially offers their expertise and their experience and enhances the functionality of your business, right? Where a contractor will just contract out the service and not necessarily provide you with the expertise in a certain service that they're providing. So I think, like Mohammed said, important things in that, the insurances, the health and safety, being able to handle big projects. That is something that is very, very crucial when it comes to FM, because at the end of the day, it all depends on how your service deliveries, how does the customer perceive your service delivery, and what is it that they're getting out of it. So to me, I would say a service provider, the key difference is that a service provider to me is somebody who helps you understand the goals of your business and deliver on the same platform as you want.
Okay. Okay, that makes sense. But just to let you know, Malika, we're having a little bit of trouble hearing you.
Okay.
I've dropped a message. Yeah, I've just dropped a message into David. I'm not sure what the issue is. It might be something to do with your microphone, but we'll have a chat about that offline. I wanted to ask you before I move over to Fahad, what are the most significant factors when promoting or trying to promote a unified approach from the relevant stakeholders to ensure that the best service delivery standards are, available?
I think one of the biggest approaches that I have taken is that where to the stakeholders especially is that when I say that they don't, instead of dealing with a lot of people, they would have to deal with one person. So it's one person who understands their business model completely, customizes the service according to what they want, and gives them the delivery up to the satisfaction that they want.
Yeah, so basically dealing with one party as opposed to dealing with a number of parties. Okay, wonderful. Thank you very much, Malika. Let's bring Fahad, who's sitting very patiently all the way from Saudi. Please go ahead, Fahad. Love to hear your thoughts.
Actually, Sarah, it's an interesting question. But from my point of view, the service provider have the solution and provide the services end-to-end to the customers. Give you an example like the mailing services or telecommunication service provider have a solution from end-to-end services.
Okay.
But regarding the service contract, they don't have the solutions, but they do subcontract with the service providers to have the solutions, like a construction company. So they have a lot of subcontract to deliver the services. Well, this is the difference between the service provider and the service contract.
Okay. All right. Fahad, obviously you're joining us from Saudi, so it's very interesting to get your thoughts and your perspective from over there. How important is the relationship between the varying parties involved in a contract, in your opinion? And how should, and who should take that lead in managing that relationship?
Good. All the stakeholders have to work toward applying the contract terms in order to reach the optimum level of use of this contract. But the relationship between the parties is important, and the most important is how to maintain it, because with the relations, a lot of issues and dispute can be resolved without involving or reaching to the legal area or legal contract. So as the FM managers, you have to maintain the good relations with your supplier and your contractors to resolve it and to make a lot of things easy to resolve. There's no need to go to reach it to the legal or the court in terms of dispute.
Yeah, and I'm sure that especially during the pandemic, these relationships have been challenged somewhat, and I'm sure all three of you would have had some sort of experience to that, which we'll get into that a little bit later on. Thank you very much, all three panelists. Let's go straight over to the straw poll question, and we'll give an opportunity to the lovely audience to get involved in what it is that we're doing. So this is a question for you, audience, and please get involved. Very simple. We've only got 3 possible answers. There's no right or wrong. It's just purely what it is based on your experience and from your perspective. So I'll read out the question for you and give you a few seconds to answer. With FM very much in the health spotlight during COVID-19, trust-based relationships between clients and FM companies are now much less important and less relevant than before. Very much the same as previously, no real effective change. Last option is now much more relevant with higher exposure and importance. So we'll give the audience a few seconds to answer. I have a feeling I know which one is going to be the overwhelming winner, but I've been terribly wrong in these polls before, so I'm not going to speak too soon. Right, so shall we publish the results? I was absolutely right. Okay, so 88%, which is an overwhelming majority, have said that it is much more relevant, you know, in terms of having a higher exposure and importance, which makes a lot of sense considering what we've been through in the past. And I feel that a lot of the asset owners, clients, whatever you'd like to call them, have really put a huge amount of trust in FM companies, and they've had you know, they've really relied on them to pull through COVID, and you know, we've actually showed them what we can do. So that hopefully has benefited the relationship. Thank you very much to everyone who was involved in that. And let's go over to the second discussion point. We'll start with you again, Mohammed, if we can. So from your perspective, Mohammed, which service performance and customer satisfaction measurement techniques do you consider are the most effective?
For me, what worked best is the structured interview. So I like to call it a PPM. So basically, if you can have 4 a year, every quarter a small one, and then the last one would be a big one with a big questionnaire, and that will have somebody senior, independent from the operations team, meet the client, and basically go through things about responsiveness, professionalism, reliability, friendliness. Is there anything that we are not doing correctly? And I think the client will be feeling more comfortable working with someone from the commercial team or BD team, independent from operations. The other thing that works is having those walkthroughs and listening to the client. And maybe those could be the first 3 that I said, the minor PPMs for the quarterly, and the yearly will be the main structure.
Yeah, it's a very interesting point that you raised, because I think also one of the challenges that we have with client management or relationship management is with sort of the perspective of who the client is. So, you know, you've got different levels where you have the kind of daily operational client who deals with your FM manager on a daily basis and their director, and it goes up to, you know, their chairman, CEO, whoever it is. And they all have a different outlook and kind of opinion on the FM company that's being used. So it's very difficult to kind of manage that relationship from all kind of levels. And I'm aware that some of the FM companies are, well, not just FM companies, but, you know, just in general, are quite keen on using tools such as relationship matrix tools, where you can have a relationship with your daily, you know, the guy that you're dealing with on a daily basis. Maybe have, like, for example, you as a CEO of DR will have a meeting once a year with their CEO just to find out how things are going on, and build it up as a, you know, kind of that kind of matrix and hierarchy. That's quite effective as well. Thank you very much for that, Mohammed. I'd like to ask you one other point before I let you go. What impact do you think employee training will have to the success of monitoring and managing performance techniques to their full potential?
Training is important in any aspect of business, as you would know. So in this instance, if we're talking about structured interviews, you can train the management team how to actually conduct it. So that's one fold. And then after we know what's the problems, we need them to have other trainings to actually conduct the improvements that we agree on. So when I'm going on a meeting, if it's possible to tag along one of my team members, they will come and, you know, they will basically listen so that they are prepared for doing this for themselves in the future.
Yeah, it's a very good point. Thank you very much, Mohammed. Appreciate that. Let's bring Malika back into the conversation and get your thoughts, please. I think your mic might be on mute. Okay, Malika, we can't hear you. I'm not sure if you've got yourself on mute or not, or if you can hear me okay. Oh, yeah, we've got you now. Please go ahead.
Is it better now?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay, so as Mohammed was saying, continuing on that, I think for me, for the service performance and customer satisfaction measurement, I think one of the techniques that has really worked well for me across all of the projects that I have done and even now with my teams is customer feedback, and I think that is very important, right?
Yeah.
Having that relationship with the customer where they are open to give you feedback, and then having the relationship with your customer care and your operations team where they are open to welcoming the comments that are coming from the customer and not take it in a negative way. There's a lot of, I always emphasize, and I put a lot of pressure on this, is that I think one of the gaps that we face, especially, and my comparison is always back to Canada, between Canada and here, is that customer service gap, right? Where you need to build up the relationship and the rapport, where the customer themselves becomes the gauge for the level of service that they are looking for and the level of service that you're delivering. So for me, I think customer surveys, I think feedback from them, and then giving them resolutions, providing the resolution saying, yes, sometimes of course you get difficult customers where they're like, they're looking for something specific. And you as a service provider and as the expert of the industry can give them a suggestion saying, this is not what it is. Sometimes it might be a solution that is a bit more costlier, but then that's where your relationship comes in and the trust factor comes in. One of the other things I believe is that it's very important for us to be very transparent with our customers and give them exactly what's going to happen, a program in place. Don't give them fake times, fake dates, anything of that sort, because that really affects the credibility. And once you have built the credibility with the client, I have personal experience that a lot of times my customer is asking me to do something and I tell them after that, I'm sorry, I cannot do this, but I will get somebody else who can do this. That gets appreciated in the long run more than just telling them I'll do something and not being able to deliver after expectation.
Yeah, no, you've made some very interesting and valid points. I mean, you mentioned a few things that I picked up on. So transparency, absolutely. Not overcommitting or overpromising and under-delivering, absolutely. That's, having that trust factor. And it is very difficult, particularly at this time, Malika, where we've been all challenged, particularly from a cost perspective, because as you all know, clients want to keep their costs as low as possible because they're not making the money that they used to be making. So I like the fact that you mentioned, that we are the experts in the industry. So let us do our job, let us get on with it, let us advise you. And I think ultimately, if we are successful, the client's successful. So if the asset owner's successful, then we are successful. It really is a collaboration of efforts. It can't be one party or the other. We have to work together in this. Thank you very much for that. I'd like to ask you one other thing before I let you go and move on to Fahad, if I may. Do you think there's a fine line between, because I mentioned the cost factor, do you think there is a fine line between the cost factor of performance management and the practicalities of relationship management for asset owners?
Yes, there is. And it's one of those things where you need to tread on it very, very carefully but again, I will come back to the point where I made is that if you have built a relationship with the client and you have the credibility and the rapport and the transparency in place, there's many a times where I have been able to sit down with customers and say, yes, I agree with what your budget is, right? But let me show you how this will be profitable for you in the long run, right? And being an expert in the industry and being an expert on doing this, if we are able to show how this benefits them, you know, I have never had a problem where clients have not said, I'm going to use the English phrase, which I'm sure you and David, and I've heard it from David, you know, a lot of times you find people who are penny wise, pound foolish, right? And that is something that is, you know, people are looking for that price, where they're not able to see the how it affects them long term. And a lot of people in the industry don't find that courage to sit in front of the client and say, no, this is not going to be helpful or beneficial for you in the long run or for your asset, right? You just need to be fearless and say that, because if you have done your homework and you know your job, you know, you should be able to convince them.
Yeah. And be fearless. We've got to be fearless in FM. I like that, Malika. That's I think that's a slogan I'm going to start using in the future. I like that. Fearless in FM. No, fantastic points, and it makes a lot of sense. And you raised the point also, there is a difference between price and cost. And ultimately, if you want to, you know, extend the life of the assets, you have to look at the value of investing in them. Thank you very much, Malika. Let's bring Fahad back in. Same question to you, Fahad. Which service performance and customer satisfaction measurement techniques do you consider are the most effective?
Strong metric, it's allow you to understand where are you today in order to create the roadmap for tomorrow.
Yeah.
I think through the benchmarking, the facility manager look the best practice can be implemented. The combination between the qualitative and the quantitative data can provide the FM with full round assessment of customer satisfaction and service provider as well. When both type of data are used, as a facility manager gain comprehensive feedback. So the quantitative data collection and analysis or survey that may be used in some scenario, but walk through around and observations or one-to-one exchange other informations sure will be necessary in the other situations. So the combination between quantitative and qualitative data plus the continued improvement, it's a key also to increase the effectiveness and the efficiency in terms of get the customer satisfaction measure.
Thank you, Fahad. Of course, I'm going to ask you questions specific to KSA because you're over there. So I'm very interested to know how things work over there in comparison to here. So considering performance management technology, it's continuously changing and it's continuously enhancing. How do FM companies determine what best suits their needs? And how do you see that there in Saudi?
You are absolutely right. The change in the facility technology has been fast and ceaseless. Today, most essential tools for the facility managers are digital. The growth in the processing power has enabled the facility manager to gathering the store analysis a lot of data that will help him to make a quick decisions. And the technology in the facility management have a lot of benefit, like cost optimizations, improve operation efficiency, longer asset life, optimization, sustainability, enhance the workplace. So the facility manager today drive the big data to see the exchange or exactly how their performance of efficiency. So the facility technology should be aligned with organization overall strategy and goal to support the progress toward the objective. So the alignment with the strategy of the organizations will give you the insight how to know what is the best suit for the need of the technology in the FM.
Okay, and I know KSA and a lot of stuff that's happening over there. You've got some extremely flamboyant projects, advanced technologies that are being implemented there. Do you think that this is something that the market in KSA is very interested in, from a technical perspective, the advancements in technology and how they can monitor the performance? Is it something that's being embraced over there, Fahad?
Yes, it's the booming technology these days, and the government focus on the technology is different than before. I think you're absolutely right. There's a big change in the technology and the services that provided through technology in these days.
Excellent. Thank you very much for all three of you. Let's go on to our second straw poll question. I know this is the favorite time of the webinar for our audience. Unfortunately, we don't give prizes away. I think if we actually gave away a prize, we might have more people participating. Please, guys, everyone that's listening, go over and just pick one of the answers that best suits you. So the question is, how important is maintaining the post-contract award relationship with clients to maximize service delivery standards? Option 1, not important. Clients only want low-cost services. B, important, but it does impact service standards. It doesn't impact service standards. Or C, very important, good relationships equal contract retention. Be interesting to see what you will come back with. I've got an idea of a couple of these probably favoring more than one of them. But yeah, please answer honestly from your perspective on how you feel about that. Oh, okay, makes a lot of sense. 86% of people think that it's very important because ultimately good contracts do equal contract retention. And I think that's something that Malika, Mohammed and Fahad actually touched upon earlier on. It's very important to maintain those relationships. Thank you very much to the audience. Let's go on to the third discussion point, and we'll bring Mohammed in again, if we can start with you. So the third discussion point, Mohammed, is which international standards and best practices do you see enhancing CRM in the Middle East?
Actually, good question. I'm not aware of a specific international standard for CRM. Maybe it's part of the 45001 or the 41001 FM, the ISO for FM. But I believe that best practices, we spoke a lot of them during the discussion, but some of the things that we are implementing in our company is that we are providing, for example, workshops with our clients. One of the workshops that we do is called Pains and Gains. So over what we have in the contract, we say to the client, okay, I still see you not happy. What is your pain? How can I help you? And then we come out with some action points that we need to put, which is outside the contract, and those are added values. And you look at the gains that he wished to have, but he doesn't have it in the contract. And then we see if we can do it free of charge, great. If it needs some cost, then we talk to him about it. And basically we end up with a new framework outside the contract. I had a customer 10 years ago, and it was in the exhibition center in Abu Dhabi. And the first day I entered his office, I introduced myself. I was the facilities manager. And funny enough, he told me, do you have a copy of the contract? I told him, yes, it's in my office. He said, okay, here's my copy. And he told me, can you help me lift the table? I said, okay, yes. So I helped him, and he put it under one of the sides of the table, to balance the table. I said, why do you want to do that? He said, no, we don't want to work. You know what is the contract. I know what is the contract. But let's put it aside. Let's not look at every single line and dot in the contract. Let's work within the spirit of the contract as partners. And that was the first time I heard the word partner in facilities management. So the amount of freebies that I gave was huge, but the amount what he gave us back was even bigger. And a big shout out to Kevin at the time, because he actually taught me something which I tried to implement in all my career, to build a partnership between me and my service providers or service contractors downstream and with my clients upstream.
What an interesting story. I really hope Kevin is listening. And it will be good to see how many contracts he's got propping up his table now. So thank you very much for that. But before I let you go, Mohammed, but no, I mean, absolutely, you know, it makes a lot of sense because ultimately the contract is there as a framework, and, you know, the relationship is what makes the contract work 100%. And we are partners in this. You know, if we're successful, they're successful, and vice versa. I'd just like to ask you, Mohammed, what are the challenges of FM companies trying to maintain good client relationships when delivering on low cost expectations from asset owners?
Now, clients, especially in the last period, are very cost cautious. They want to try and get whatever they can with the minimum cost. That could impact their asset, but sometimes they are saying, guys, we are on a very stringent budget. We understand that this will affect my budget now, but I want to worry about it 5 years down the line. I just can't worry about it today. Now, the key in any relationship is to listen and not to hear. So if you are building a partnership, listen to your customer, okay, understand his needs and build a model based on his requirement. You give him the advice, you give him what is good for him, but sometimes from an asset management perspective, from a budget perspective, his hands are tied. So you need to work with him to balance between the cost and the quality, and that becomes a challenge for us. Can we absorb some of that cost? Can we reduce our margins? But as everybody knows, facilities management world works on very, very thin margins. So this year especially, I think for us and for all other service providers, surviving the year, surviving the pandemic was a big thing, especially when we extended our help to our clients from different perspectives, reducing manpower, increasing services, deferring payment terms, etc.
No, you make a very good point when you mentioned, you know, we to build a model that suits their needs and listen to their needs, because I'm a great believer in you get what you pay for, you know, and it's not realistic to have these very high expectations in terms of service delivery when you're not able to pay for it. But I believe also us as FMs, you know, and FM professionals, we can deliver a service that meets the client's requirements, even if it's on a lower budget. It's just really understanding what it is, what their basic needs are, and developing a service around that and on that cost. So absolutely, 100%. Thank you very much for that, Mohammed. Let's ask the same question to Malika, please. Over to you. Malika, can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. I think there's a slight delay, that's all. Yeah, we can hear you now. So Malika, which international standards and best practices do you see enhancing CRM in the Middle East?
I mean, I'm going to go forward with what Mohammed said. So basically, up until now, the standard that we have been following in terms of quality and everything is the ISO 9001, right? They have come up with the 45, but it's not implemented yet. However, I think in terms of, I think more than the standards, it's the best practices that keep you in the game, as I would say. And one of the things that I rate very highly in terms of the best practices is collaboration, right? So building what Mohammed said, partnership is very, very important. You know, you need to collaborate with the client in order for you to understand what their expectations are, and for them to understand how they can manage, how you're going to manage those expectations. Whether it be by, you know, giving them the workforce that they need, by training your workforce to be able to deliver at the standards that they want. But it is very important that the collaboration is there, number one. The second thing is, I think you need to have data to collect as much as you can, so that going forward, you know, and earlier in the contract, you know, so your mobilization, I think that the mobilization period is very essential for you, right? Because that's where you are getting to know the client and things. I always tell my FM managers and the teams that go to site, I said, you guys have to look at it this way. When you start a contract, your mobilization period is when you have just started to date, and everything is a bed of roses, and they're all flowers, and you're all happy, right? It's not until you get past the 3 months that the marriage starts, you know, when you realize that somebody is not able to cook and somebody's not able to clean. So it's very important that you manage those expectations, collaborate right in the beginning, right, and set the ground rules of how you're going to take this forward. And I think in terms of keeping it simple is very important. So don't get into any complex things. Keep it simple. This is what the client wants. This is what we can deliver, and come to a common goal to deliver.
Thank you. You know, we spoke earlier regarding sort of the technological advancements in FM. And I quite like that, you know, your responses in terms of you have a very traditional approach to relationship management, which I personally think is the best and most effective. But I'd like to ask you, Malika, do you think that the technological advancement will drive FM away from, sort of FM companies away from the more traditional face-to-face relationship building and relationship management methods?
I, on the other hand, think that it will give more time to the right people to sit and have conversations. Because if you look at it now, without having technology involved, everybody who goes on the site is so involved with doing a walk around, with meeting different people and all that. Whereas I think if we put a contract with a combination of technology and manpower, I think the right people would have a better chance of sitting with, you know, so your FM manager has a chance to sit with the client manager and actually see where it's going, you know, where all the data that you're getting is more pure than you would get from a person, right?
Yeah.
So I actually think technology will help us make our relationships stronger, and making the right relationships stronger.
Yeah. No, that's a good point, and that's what it's there for. You know, it's a tool for us to utilize and a resource for us to enhance, you know, things that we do on a daily basis. Thank you very much for that, Malika. Let's go over to Fahad and get his thoughts on this discussion point, please.
Yes, the CRM can be identified as a tool which look at the facility management function as a customer incentive business rather than facility as a cost center. So the managing critical facilities management services and approach relationship can be seen as important simultaneous things. So shifting from profit maximization to the customer satisfactions emphasize at the strategy of the facility management. How to enhance the CRM? It's by effective communication and management of expectation as well. And this can be happen by related training and develop procedures for the CRM.
Okay, Fahad, thank you very much for that. Again, because you're in Saudi, it's always good to get your thoughts on, you know, what's happening over there against what's happening here in the UAE. So I'd like to ask you, do you think there is a difference in the approach to identify the best practice standards in Saudi Arabia against other areas of the Middle East?
It's a good question. The best practice is generally considered a superior method on innovation practice contribution to improve performance of organizations. For such institute like Institute of Workplace and Facility Management share with us a lot of best practices and knowledge that can be implemented to improve the facility management across all the world. So there is no difference at the best practice standard from KSA or against not only Middle East, it's worldwide. The best practice and the knowledge share is across. We're using the same method and methodology that implemented across worldwide.
Okay, so there's no sort of major significant differences between what's happening there in KSA. Okay, all right. Thank you very much, Fahad. Thank you to all three of you. Let's go on to our final straw poll question. Right, now this is a very controversial one. I quite like this question, so I'm quite intrigued to see what the outcome of this is going to be. So to the audience, final straw poll. Within FM companies, whose role is it? Whose role is most influential to define, build, and maintain relationship management activities? Is it pre-award, the business development teams, service delivery, the operation teams, or post-award, the call centers and marketing teams? So I suppose it really depends on which department you work in, and what your perspective is on how this question is going to be answered. Very interested to see the outcome. Give you guys a few more seconds. I know we've discussed this throughout the course of today's discussion points. So let's have a look and see how we've done on that. Yeah, I'm not too surprised actually. So a quarter of you thought it is pre-award. 63% of people thought it is the service delivery and operational teams, and 13% is the post-award. What do you guys think on the panel? Do you think it should go to one division, or do you think it's a combined effort? What are your thoughts, guys? Anybody?
I think it's a combined effort between everyone. It's operations team have the day-to-day, responsibility. Business development beginning at the beginning of the contract as well. They need to keep the relationship, especially when, as we said, they want to have those written follow-ups or surveys. So it's better to send somebody from commercial or BD team or marketing. The call center normally will receive complaints. They need to absorb the client. They need to see what's the problem. They play as the first line of defense, and then they need to ensure that they pass it to other departments, especially for operation. But at the end of the day, it's everybody's responsibility, not only one. Operation obviously have a bigger role, as the poll showed, but it's a collaborative matter.
Yeah, very well said. Thank you, Mohammed. Anybody else would like to comment on that one?
Yes, I agree with Mohammed. Mohammed, you are right. The operation team and even the procurement and legal department, all these departments maintain the relationship activity. You are absolutely right. Thank you.
Malika?
I think from my point of view, obviously everybody is involved, but I think just that I come from a customer care background. I think call center plays a very big role, because as Mohammed said, rightfully said, that, it's the first point of contact for the client, So if you have a strong call center who's receiving the calls and absorbing what's coming in, it's easily, you can mitigate it and it can be solved properly. So
yeah,
all parts of the customer care comes in first.
Okay, thank you very much, guys. Right, so that's the end of the discussion points. Now we are going to go on to some questions, and hopefully panelists are going to answer. We have had a few questions in. As normal, we get some questions that we normally cover in the duration of the webinar, which we have done. We've got an interesting question that's come in from Priyesh Kumar. I'm going to send this to you, Fahad, because you're more the technology expert on the panel, so I'd be interested to get your thoughts here. The question is the FM industry ready to utilize the AI technology and implement it? And what are the pros and cons, he'd like to know?
It's a good question, Sarah. I think yes. Now the robotics and other technologies that can be useful in the FM, especially for the maintenance, for something that is no need manpower or no need technicians to rely on, because most, as we said before, most of the the activities and the incident came now to the digital, that especially in the start from the beginning to receive the incident or the service request from your customers until the end to receive it by technicians or even non technicians, even by technology. I think yes, the IA is it's booming now and get involved in the facility management, and we'll see it in the any softwares that will support it by FM soon, inshallah.
Inshallah. Thank you, Fahad. Interesting question coming. I mean, again, they're all actually technology-based questions, which is it's funny that we have technology questions, you know, in a topic for relationship management. Just goes to show you how much we're involved with technology in FM now. I'd like to ask this to Mohammed. It's from a young man called Tom Rickard. I'm sorry if I've mispronounced that, Tom. Do forgive me. I'm terrible with names. He wants to know, how do you see the impact of IoT, Internet of Things, in buildings, and link this to the agile-based working and flexible service offerings?
Okay, today IoT is being implemented in facilities management, Internet of Things, as well as AI, as well as many other technology-driven initiatives. But at this moment of time, I don't think that it is that advanced. I think we are now experimenting. We are now in our company experimenting with having 240 locations for lifts and introducing IoT to the lifts so that we can actually have readings which can help us in reducing our cost and at the same time reducing the downtime for lifts. So we have done something like that. We are working on artificial intelligence with regards to inspection in soft services, actually, for toilet inspections, where we can introduce pictures which actually show a clean toilet, and then the artificial intelligence, when he receives the pictures, he can say this is a clean toilet or not. If it's not, then it will escalate to a certain place. So in my opinion, everything relating to IoT and artificial intelligence is people are experimenting now, maybe some companies more than others. Obviously the benefits will show in the future, but now I'm worried about the investment, because you know, normally in UAE especially, everybody, something comes new, everybody invests in it. Now with the economic downturn and what's happened in the last year, people are a bit shy about investing in those things and getting, I think now everybody wants to get the basics right. So there's the focus at the moment.
Yeah, no, it's a very good point. Thank you very much, Mohammed. Just another quick question, that's last minute questions that are coming in. Sorry guys, I would love to get through these, but I'm not sure if we can go through them all. But Malika, there's an interesting question that's come in related to clients, and I'd like to ask you this. This is from a lady called Sonia Benhammer. Again, Sonia, apologies if I've mispronounced your name. The question is, how do you go about dealing with very difficult clients? Seeing as you're the customer relations expert here, we'd like to ask you that one. It's probably a good question to end on as well.
So Sonia, I think I will give you a personal story on this. Is that we have a building, as part of the team, we have a developer that we were dealing with exclusively. They had a building that they built, and there was an issue with, there was a slight smell issue because the apartment that was bought was not moved into for some time. So obviously when the person moved into the apartment, they turned on the tap, there were smell issues because the water had not gone through the pipes and everything. Most of the time in my experience is that the customer just wants somebody who will listen to them. And I remember this call came in, my customer care people had already gone home. It was past 6:30. I was in my office, I picked up the call, and I was on this call for almost 45 minutes. And all I did was, yes, I understand, I apologize, I'm sure we'll be able to manage this. But at the end of it all, I now have a client who, if I tell him, no, we cannot do this, you should give me this much money for this, he never ever asks me to show him receipts or anything else. So it is all, at the end of the day, I always say, we are humans. One of the basic things we want is somebody to listen to us. So as long as you're willing to listen to them, just listen to them, empathize, and say, I understand. My keyword, a lot of people who know me well, they'll say, yes, here goes her, I understand, I understand. And you know what, I do understand. And over time, your mind starts to process it automatically. Now, when people talk to me, I'm usually writing down points of what I want, what they want me to solve. And at the end of it, when I tell them, so is this what you wanted? Some people have just told me, do you have a magic wand? And I said, yes, I understand that too. So I think empathizing and listening are very key. And going back, Sarah, to what you had asked earlier, with that face-to-face conversations, those have become very important with this IoT, because there's a lot of people who are not that they're technology averse, but they are on the same page saying, with technology coming in, would we lose that human touch, right? So it is therefore more important for managers, and especially managers on at higher levels, to be able to be listeners and listen to what the client is saying.
Yeah. Thank you. It's interesting. I was actually looking at Mohammed's facial expressions while you were talking, and I think me and him were thinking the same thing. We've had quite a few of those conversations in our past. FM professional / therapist. I think that's a very good point. Thank you very much, Malika. And actually, what a wonderful question to end on. So thanks very much for that. Now, guys, unfortunately, we have come to the end of the webinar. As always, I've thoroughly enjoyed hosting the webinar. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I hope you have enjoyed it as much as I have. Please be sure to join us for the next webinar, which will be coming up in January. I'm going to provide you a couple of dates for your diary, so please don't sign off just now. I'd like to sincerely thank you all the attendees and participants, for tuning in today and taking part in the straw poll questions and sending through your questions. A huge thank you to our fantastic, brilliant panelists, Mohammed, Malika and Fahad, for sharing their expertise and knowledge on such an important and very diverse subject, which is really ultimately the core of our business. A big thank you to our support team in the UK and here in the UAE. Without them, these webinars would not be possible. And once again, I'd like to thank our loyal sponsors, Adib FM, Quality Refrigeration and Air Conditioning, BFM Tafawuk, which is an Eltizam company. On behalf of IWFM, I'd like to extend our sincere thanks to you all. So before I sign off and bid you all a farewell, just a quick slide just to let you know what we've got coming up in the diary. So please do make a note. 19th of January. Now this is going to be a very interesting one. The procurement and supply chain management. That's the topic. So Fahad's nodding his head. I think he's going to be tuning in. It's going to be a very interesting discussion. Don't miss that one. Between the 18th and the 19th, there's a contract management virtual live training that's happening. Again, go onto the website. You'll get all the details of that. And from the 20th to the 22nd of Jan, introduction to FM. I'm not sure if there's any spaces available, but please do visit the website to see if you can still get on those courses. They will be fantastic, I'm sure. And towards the end of January, the 27th to the 28th, managing building services. Further details are available on the website, and all the other activities and training sessions that are happening in 2021. So please follow us on our social media platforms, LinkedIn, we're there on Facebook, we're also there on Twitter. And thank you very much for joining us today. Again, absolute pleasure. We do have a very short mini survey for all the attendees. Please feel free to go ahead and answer them. We just want to know how we can improve our webinars for the future, because ultimately, guys, this is what we do. We do it for you, the FM community. Again, Fahad, Mohammed and Malika, thank you very, very much, and thank you all for joining. And until the next time, I bid you farewell and a very good evening to you all. Thanks again, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.